why don't you introduce? Gotcha.
Sorry, what did you say?
Would you introduce yourself?
Oh yeah, I'm Alana Honecker. I'm with Freshwater Future. I'm the Grant and Community Program Associate, and I am in Minneapolis currently.
Thank you. And I should have mentioned I'm in Jamestown, New York. Lori, if you would introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Lori, and I am with Freshwater Future. I'm the grant specialist. So when you send your grant to Freshwater, it will be coming to me, and I'll be managing it hopefully for you. And I am in Harbor Springs, Michigan.
Thanks, Lori. And Bob Stuber, let's go to you, please. You just have to unmute, Bob. Oh, it unmuted and then it muted again. I think maybe.
Oh, let's try.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
There we go. Anyway, I'm Bob Stuber. I'm with the Michigan Hydro Relicensing Coalition. We were fortunate enough in 2021 to receive a Freshwater Future grant that I hope we're doing good things with, and we're very interested in pursuing opportunities in 2022.
Excellent. Thank you, Bob. And where do you sit?
I'm normally in Traverse City, but I hate to confess to all of you today because you'll hate me. I'm actually down in Sarasota right now.
Nice. Just send us some sand along with that grant application, okay?
There you go.
I will do that.
All right. I am gonna go to Regina, please. Regina, are you able to unmute?
Hello. I'm
there.
up here getting tires on my car. I'm
Oh,
Regina,
goodness.
and I'm from Detroit. I'm an urban farmer. I'm a community resource person, community advocate, and nice meeting everyone.
Excellent. Thank you, Regina. It's good to have you on. We have someone called Zoom user. If you don't have your name up, could you unmute and tell us who you are?
Jody Korch, Coalition to Save the Menominee River. And I am Township of Wagner. I'm live right on the Menominee River.
Excellent. Excellent.
to
Well, I'm
meet you,
glad
Jody.
you're on, Jody.
Thank you.
All right. And we have Donna. Would you unmute, please? There she is. Hello.
Hey, Jill. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm out and about today or whatever, but hi, Donna McDuffie, Detroit, Michigan. I'm a resident of a community group and it's located in Chandler Park.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Donna. Glad you're on. Be safe there. All right. And next we'll go to Dale Burry.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dale Burry, and I serve the Coalition to Save the Menominee River. We are based in Marinette, Wisconsin, but we are right on the Menominee River. I see Jody is on. Jody lives right on the river, and he is our secretary for the Coalition. So we've been working with Freshwater Future for a number of years, years, and we are very grateful for their work and what they do. So thank you for having this and allowing us to be with you.
Appreciate that, Dale. Thank you. All right. And we're going to move on to Commissioner Mary Alice Adams.
Hello, everyone. Commissioner Mary Alice Adams, serving my third term and doing exactly what I took an oath to do, and that was to improve the quality of life for those in my community and starting a community nonprofit. Freshwater Future has been the greatest thing that has happened to me in doing so. And I just want to thank everyone. I wash my hair and I look a mess, so I please forgive me, but thank you all.
And you sit where, Commissioner?
I am a commissioner at large and I'm in the city of Benton Harbor, Michigan.
Thank you. Excellent. Glad you're on. Next, we have Jack Catrone. I'm not sure if I'm messing up your name, Jack. Sorry about that.
Yep, you got that right. Very good. I'm Jack Catrone. I work for the State of Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy out of our Warren district office, just north of Detroit. I work with our non-point source program. So we do a lot of our own grants and water quality focused projects, but we provide technical assistance to a lot of groups in grant projects and grant proposals. So just do our best to stay in tune with every opportunity that's out there.
Gotcha. Thanks, Jack. Glad you're on. Next, we have Erin Stanley.
Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Stanley. I'm the Climate Equity Program Manager at Eastside Community Network. We are on the east side of Detroit. And I'm just here to learn more about this potential opportunity. We have a lot of kind of projects that we're working on with residents that, you know, potentially could fit with one of these grants, including, just since Jack mentioned the non-point source program, trying to kind of do a community engagement side around developing like a sewer shed management plan for the east side of Detroit. So we're one of the only communities in this region that's not currently covered by a watershed management program. And so we're thinking of that as a way to provide education around the watershed and look at what specifically makes Detroit unique as like an urban watershed, you know, how to prevent, you know, flooding and yeah, so flooding is a big concern, stormwater management, but also combined sewer overflows and but really trying to make sure that whatever we do is done equitably and benefits people that have been hardest hit and will be hardest hit as we navigate climate change. So yeah, I'm just happy to be here to learn.
Excellent. All right. Well, glad you're on, Erin. Excellent. Next, Samantha, and I can't see the end of your last name, so I won't try.
That's because it's really long. Thank you. Thanks. So I'm Samantha Pickering, and I'm the Director of Education at Plastic Oceans International. And I'm in Detroit, Michigan, where one of our Blue Communities programs is housed. And it's essentially a program where we help foster a sustainable community by trying to remove as much litter as we can from the shorelines and keeping it out of the Detroit River so that it doesn't make its way over to the ocean. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Good to see you. Glad you're here. And then we go to Caitlin Fellow.
Yes, hi. Caitlin Fellow. I am representing the Seneca Lake Pure Waters Association, for which I am the association director. We're located in the Finger Lakes of New York. So, you know, really kind of the southeast tip of the Great Basin. I'm also here representing what we call the Lake Friendly Living Coalition of the Finger Lakes, which consists of 7 Finger Lakes lake associations mainly who have come together to help promote the lake friendly living lifestyle and, you know, share our ideas with one another. We have, when the group was much smaller, applied for Freshwater Future funding in the past, and my lake association has done so before my time with them. So I'm here to learn more about for both entities and look forward to applying this year.
Sounds great. Thanks, Caitlin. And finally, we have Wade Motor.
Yeah, hi, I'm Wade Motor. I'm the director of the Upper Sugar River Watershed Association. We're located in southwest Dane County near Madison, Wisconsin, just a little few miles away from Madison, Wisconsin. One of our members told us about this grant opportunity I hadn't heard about in the past, so I'm just here to learn more about it and see if there's a fit for us.
Sounds great. Welcome. Excellent. Well, we appreciate everybody taking the time to be on. We will try to use the time efficiently, so we respect all of that time. And so we're going to jump right in. If Alana, if you'll put up the slides, please. And I would also say, feel free to unmute and let me know if you have questions. I'm pretty flexible, so you don't have to wait till the end. All right, so, oh, I left Anne's email on here. So the main contact for grants, your primary point of contact is Lori. And then if she needs to engage one of the other staff at Freshwater Future, she will easily do that. So you can always get a hold of her at that email as well as that phone number, and she's extension 2. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to go over these things today, a little bit more information about Freshwater Future, what kinds of grants we have available, what the eligibility requirements are, what we mean by grassroots and advocacy, what the application process and timeline look like, not just the fall, but also the spring. And then we'll go into questions. Next slide. So Freshwater Future has been around for about 26 years. We were created specifically to help communities across the Great Lakes region to be able to protect their own waters. And originally it was primarily lakes, streams, wetlands, that sort of work. But over the past 10 or more years, we've increasingly also opened it up to drinking water issues. And so we're sort of from source to tap now, working on groundwater, drinking water, and just about any type of water in the Great Lakes region. We have several programs to help to do that. One is the funding programs. So we provide funding to local organizations. We also provide consulting assistance. So our staff has a lot of history in running nonprofit organizations. So we provide one-on-one consulting to organizations to help them grow. And then the third side is policy, where we see multiple places struggling with the same issue. We'll see if there's a policy solution that might be able to help in an overarching way. So that's basically Freshwater Future. We work both in Canada and the US, in the Great Lakes states and the province of Ontario. And we have a charity in Canada and a C3 in the States. Next slide, please. So over the years, we've given out over $5 million in grants that has gone to over 1,300 projects. So it's been a while, and I'm a little bit slow to say that I have been here for over 22 of those years. So it's been fun learning about all the organizations that we work with. Which is over 2,000. We work with over 2,000 groups across the region. So we've protected, through these grants, local communities have protected thousands of acres of wetlands, restored miles of streams, protected groundwater sources for dozens of communities, removed hundreds of tons of sediments from waterways, and engaged hundreds of thousands of residents in protecting their own water, among other things, but these are some highlights. Next slide, please. So our grant opportunities this year include this program, which we call our project grants. And the deadline, as you probably already know, is March 31st for the spring cycle. And then we'll have another cycle in the fall, which will have a deadline of September 30th. These are our traditional grants program that allow you to tell us what you need and come with your project, and we try to provide support for that. The grants range from $500 to $5,000. And I'm happy to say we did hear just a few weeks ago that a new foundation is coming in to add funding to this grant pot. So it looks like we will probably have more than double the amount of money we've had in the last few years. So that's really good news. In addition to these project grants, we have special opportunity grants. That's really an emergency type of grant, up to $500. And that's when you just need a small amount of money for some quick turnaround thing happening, you can let us know at any time that you have that need. You just write a letter. There's a short process to do that. It's on our website. And then we try to turn those around within 2 weeks. We also have consulting grants. So I talked a little bit about our staff doing one-on-one consulting. And we have a grant program that helps to subsidize that time. So in general, if you're a member, you get a 25% discount. And you can apply for a grant that will pay up to 75%, or if it's a hardship, even the whole cost of an engagement for consulting. That would be things like strategic planning, fundraising planning, campaign work, anything to help build the organization. And then finally, we do have communications grants as well. Right now, the only one that's open is there's no cash award, but the grant awardees receive consulting assistance from an external marketing firm. So those are a bit larger awards, around $22,000 in marketing assistance. Next slide, please. So what are the eligibility requirements? First thing is grassroots. Basically, you're small or you're getting most of your work done with volunteers. That your work focuses on water work within the region, within the Great Lakes region. You have to be a member of Freshwater Future. And the reason we do that is it's kind of a pay it forward thing. It costs us quite a bit of money to go out and raise the money to give grants away. And this allows us to keep applying for the next year's grant funds. So we do ask for memberships. You have to make sure that your past grant reports are up to date, and Lori can help you with that. If you're not sure, she can check that for you. And then you have to either be a US nonprofit, 501c3, or a Canadian charity, or have a fiscal sponsor that is one of those things. Next slide, please. So a little more detail on what is grassroots. We're basically defining that as groups with limited funds, rely on volunteers for most of their work. We don't have a specific budget cutoff. Usually, though, we're funding groups that have a budget of $200,000 or less. Next slide. And what is advocacy? So there's a lot of confusion in the nonprofit world about the word advocacy. One thing I'll say is we can all advocate. Advocacy is not necessarily lobbying. Advocacy is asking for change or asking to keep something the same. And so what we're looking for in terms of advocacy for our grants programs is looking at a particular change that needs to be made that can be permanent or semi-permanent. So we're not looking for things that would be a one-time shot. And we also focus that on the corporate. So that could be working with a corporation, could be working with a municipality or community, or it could be regulatory where there is a law being enforced and maybe not as well enforced as you'd like to see it. So that's what we're really looking for when we say advocacy, and every grant does need to have an advocacy component. It doesn't mean you have to lobby. In fact, our dollars can't be used for lobbying from this grant pot, but it means you really have a clear idea for making a permanent change. Next slide. All right, I mentioned there's no deadline for our special opportunity grants, that those are just up to $500. And also in this process, you can apply for a consulting grant at the same time. So if you, when you fill your application out, you for a project grant, there are some questions there about whether you need any capacity building. And if you say yes to any of those, we'll be following up to see what kind of help you need and whether we might be a good fit to help you. Next slide. So what do we fund? We fund projects that will create that ongoing change to restore or improve water resources, including drinking water. We fund watchdogging and participating in the development, implementation, and enforcement of local, state, provincial, and federal water protection regulations. And for those that aren't clear, regulations are the kind of the implementing piece of laws. So it's not, when you get into asking for a law, that's lobbying. But when you're just working on the regulatory side, where the administration creates these rules under a law, that is not lobbying, and all of that is fine. That's how we help make sure that things are enforced and that the rules are sufficient for enforcing. And then also creating stronger citizen involvement in water work. We really like to see that the community would be engaged and that people would have more information about water resources. Next slide. So to find our grant application, if you haven't yet, it's at freshwaterfuture.org/grants. And you can find the application form itself there, as well as descriptions of the different grant programs. And then if you have questions, we always are happy to answer and have a conversation with you. Next slide. What do we not fund? We don't fund governmental functions. So if it's something that a government is really tasked with, we won't fund that. We can't fund lobbying activities, so influencing specific pieces of legislation. If your project has already been completed, we can't retroactively fund it. And consulting activities for capacity building, we don't do those things under this grants program, since we have a different grants program for providing capacity building. So all of those should go through the capacity building grants. And then we, of course, can't fund anything around partisan election activities. Next slide. So process and timeline, you can call us at any point, talk through an idea, ask a question, check with Lori on how to get your application in, whatever you need. The deadline, I didn't do a very good job of updating this, did I? So the deadline is actually March 31st, 2022. And then the grant period will run from July 1st through June 30th the following year. So you have a full year. And it does take us a few months to process, make decisions, get that information out to you, get contracts signed. And so between March 31st and July 1st, it's just while we're processing all of those grants. And then there is a report that we ask for that it will be due a month after the project period ends. Next slide, please. So we use this set of questions quite a lot with groups when they're thinking about planning for change. And so I'm just going to go through these quickly because we found that people find them really helpful in terms of setting up not only a grant application, but any kind of project. So the first one is, what's the problem that we're addressing? Be really clear about that problem, and that will help you be clear about the work. Then who are the decision makers who can help make change in addressing that problem? So when we say that, we mean things like if you're working on a permit process and you want to change the mind of the person who will be issuing a permit, you would probably target that person. That's your decision maker. And that's why a lot of times when we're working on those sorts of things, we're directing comments to a person who's in charge of that permitting process. So that's just an example, but it's really important to be clear about who the decision maker is. Next, you think about how do you connect to that decision maker? Are there pathways that you can find to get to that decision maker? In governmental processes, that's often just directing comments and materials to a certain position within the government. But it can also be things like if a company is doing something, say, to harm a wetland. Yeah, you might take the tact of looking at their corporate environmental compliance officer and see if you can have a conversation and convince them that the community would really like them not to do that. So there are lots of different projects out there with different ways to connect to those decision makers. And then you have to think about how do you educate that decision maker. Lots of ways to do that as well. And one of the things that I always like to think about is who already has materials. So we don't always have to recreate the wheel. We can look at similar projects that have gone on and other things that are out on the internet often and use those as templates. And then you can also think, would it help to have someone read this proposal for you before you send it in? Sometimes I have people like my son read a proposal because I want to make sure that it's understandable, because we get so much in our heads with our work that we can lose track of the language we use and whether it's really communicating to the people we're trying to talk with. All right, next slide, please. So I talked about having to be a member, and so I'll just quickly cover benefits of membership that are beyond grants. We have a number of networks that you can participate in that are focused on specific topics. Things like lead in drinking water, affordability of drinking water, wetlands, PFAS, a whole host of topics. And so we can help you find your way into those networks if you'd like to participate in them. We also provide consulting assistance at reduced fees. We'll also send you our newsletter, online resources, toolkits you'll have access to, and trainings and events. So there are many benefits of membership, and it's generally $100 a year for a small organization. And if the $100 is a hardship, we're also able to discuss that with you and make it work. So we want to be accessible to everyone. Next slide, please. All right, so that's the formal part. Now it's time for your questions. What do you want to know from us? And also, if there is anything you've come away with from participating in our grants program in the past that you want to let us know that could help us improve, we'd love to hear that as well. And you can just unmute yourself. We don't have to raise hands and things as long as you're able to unmute.
This is Jody from the Coalition to Save the Menominee River. Just a question about the report that needs to be submitted within 1 month. I think after, excuse me, after a project begins for the spring grant period. Is that correct?
It's actually a month after the end of the project. Yeah, so you get a year, and then to do the project and an extra month to send us a report.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Jody. Other questions?
Hi, Jill. This is Caitlin from Seneca Pure Waters. So just so I know that I'm clear on what type of projects you prefer to fund, it sounds like there's some projects that are related to advocacy, you covered that. And I think that there's definitely some opportunities for my association to apply, especially the Lake Friendly Living Coalition, where we're trying to get a large community to change their behaviors. And so that sounds like that's sort of fitting. And then I also heard you talk about the types of projects, and I think I'm a little confused here, but that relate to, pulling out sediment from waterways. And this is obviously, these types of projects are to protect the drinking water source. What I'm thinking of for my association is in regards to invasive species. We have one that's encroaching upon our lake. It's on our borders really, and it's in our inlets. And it's particularly where I'm thinking of starry stonewort, where these little fragments of starry stonewort can settle in and cause havoc on a waterway.
Mhm.
With that in mind, I wonder how that fits in. It's not really the advocacy component, and it would, I guess, to get our efforts started, we would need to create a plan, maybe hire some people to do some water testing in the areas where we know that starry stonewort is established. I wonder if that sort of fits into the water quality protection portion of the grant opportunities you're speaking about.
Yeah, so I think it probably does. So to give you an invasive species example, we wouldn't fund just paying people to go out and remove an invasive species, because they come back and it takes long-term management generally.
Mhm.
So what we would help with though is more what you were talking about, an assessment of the risk of that particular invasive species, a plan for management or eradication, and a longer term advocacy component that would say, okay, it can't be just us. It has to be also maybe involving the local municipalities, involving residents around the lake, that sort of thing. So the advocacy can just be as simple as trying to work with other entities in the watershed to accomplish that goal.
Okay.
Does that help?
It does, yes. So it sounds like, if we wanted to move down the road with this type of project to be funded through Freshwater Futures, at least to get started, it would be about creating a plan and creating a management plan. And then the work itself would be done through other grant programs and so on.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Great question. Are there other questions?
Jill, this is Dale.
Hi, Dale.
Hi, how are you? How's New York?
New York's good, rainy.
Rainy. Well, we're getting a snowstorm and drizzly ice.
Oh boy,
So
that's no fun.
Thank God you're not here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to comment on some of the things that have helped us, and I know some of the groups are just at the very beginning, to raise awareness and to encourage your local people to get involved. One of the things that we found quite successful was using yard signs. And so we've got quite a few yard signs. Of course, I should step back and tell you folks what we are fighting here. The Menominee River is the second largest tributary to Green Bay, and of course Green Bay to the Great Lakes. There was a company out of Canada that wanted to come in and conduct a sulfide mine. Sulfide ore when you extract the ore, it develops through rain, snow. It develops sulfide or acid mine drainage, and that will drift through the waters, through the streams, and back into the river. And of course, there's a host of other things that we've been fighting. But nevertheless, this is a mining company. And the current mining, or the initial mining company, has transferred their interest to another mining company in Denver, Colorado. So our work is going to start all over again from scratch. But the biggest thing that we found when we were starting our organization was to encourage people to get involved. And we found that the yard sign approach worked very well for us. You know, our yard sign would have the title of our organization, you know, the website, the email, and we actually sold them as a money maker, a fundraiser, but we gave away a lot too. And you find the high traffic areas in your region, and just encourage people to put them in their yard. So that helped us immensely. And I guess that would be considered advocacy in a sense, would it not, Jill?
Yeah, I think so.
Would
Getting
it?
people
Okay.
engaged in the fight, absolutely.
Yeah. And so I thank Freshwater Future. They've been just wonderful for us. And the other thing I was going to ask you, Jill, in a recent news article about the federal government granting $1 billion to the Great Lakes Initiative for cleanup. Has there been any, what's Freshwater Future's thoughts? The problem with Great Lakes Initiative is that they're all about cleaning up water, but I would like to see them be a little proactive here. And if they know that this is going to be detrimental to the quality of the water, let's stop it before it happens.
Absolutely.
I don't understand, you know, closing the barn door after the horse is gone. I don't get that.
We don't
So-
either. And we think that's exactly what's, you know, they've already done the cleanup on the Menominee, and yet now we're considering another project that could
Yeah, they spent
terrible-
millions and millions of dollars cleaning up the Menominee. And now it's clean or cleaner, and now this threat is still there. So-
Absolutely. Well,
so-
that's our perspective, Dale, is that at Freshwater Future, we do agree that these legacy toxic hotspots need to be cleaned up.
Sure.
But that can't be the only focus. We have to, in parallel, be focused on enforcement of laws and regulations, and looking at how do we get the laws and regulations back that we
Yes.
need.
Right.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. We can't only focus on cleaning up. We don't want to cycle, which is how I look at it. If we just keep creating things like mines on top of rivers, we're only going to be in a cycle of cleanup and recontamination.
Right. Okay, thank you for your explanation. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks
I
for
will-
your good comments.
I will put my our website address in the chat. And if anybody wants to, if they are looking for yard signs, I got a great place out of Texas where we get ours. So, and they're pretty reasonable. So
That's great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dale. I appreciate that sharing. Anyone else have questions or comments?
This is Bob Stuber from the Michigan Hydro Relicensing Coalition again, and I would just encourage any of the people who participated today to interact with the staff at Freshwater Future. You folks were extremely helpful when we had questions during the application process. And then, you know, once a grant was awarded, Lori was extremely helpful with, I would give her information like on accounting and that, like, is this what you're looking for? And she's like, exactly, you know, so work with these folks. They're really on the ground oriented. So I want to thank you folks for that. And to the rest of you, reach out to them. They really are good people.
Thanks, Bob. We certainly appreciate that.
I have another question for you, Jill.
Sure.
Caitlin Fellow again. Another project. So we started a new program recently. It's called the Sediment, Nutrient, and Pollution Reduction Program. And it is actually meant to fund projects in the watershed or provide seed money for projects in the watershed that do just that, remove or protect the waterways from sediment and nutrients entering the lake and the tributaries of the lake. Is it possible that this program would fund or would partially fund a project that wasn't actually being implemented by our association, but would be meant to fund, in addition to our own association funds, fund another program in the watershed? We would probably be the ones writing the grant. So that's kind of, it would be a third-party implementation.
Yeah, we look at that as a sponsor. And so if you were the grant writer, as long as it was clear who would be doing the implementing, yeah, that wouldn't be a problem. We can't give money that would be used to sit in a pot for future grants, because then we lose control and we have to report to our funders. But if it's already a clear project, yes, absolutely.
And if the project was going to be underway, let's say this summer, I know that there's the stipulation that the project cannot be completed. But if the project was, let's say they had the enough funds for the project to proceed, and they were planning to proceed with that project, if the funds came through from Freshwater Futures in, let's say, July, August timeframe, and that would save that township or whomever that $5,000, would that be appropriate?
Yes, although we won't pay for township work. So if it's a governmental thing, we can't do that. But if it's
private landowner.
Yes, a private landowner or an association or things like that, as long as you can show that the benefit is to the community, not just to the private individual.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Sure. I see we have a couple of people who have joined since we did our round of introductions. I would invite Bertha and or Kay to introduce yourselves, just your name and your organization and where you're located, if you are open to that.
Sure. Hi, this is Kay. I'm driving right now, so it's hard to have the camera on, but I just wanted to say I'm grateful to be able to be here, and I'm with the village of Shorewood, which is right outside of Milwaukee. And we have the Shorewood Waters Project. And we are also working on a citywide network of water educators that I wanted to ask some questions about getting some support for. It's about right as COVID hit, we got together, but there's 40 of us that meet a couple times a year. And we're just looking for some support for that, because we've got some great things coming up that we're working on together. So.
Okay, excellent. Well, it's great to have you here. And what you may not have heard, because I think you were only able to make it in a little bit ago, is that there does need to be an advocacy component. So I think that would be the one thing that I'm not sure of with what you described. Is there an advocacy component with that water education? Is there a piece of that encourages people to be their own stewards and to take action to protect water?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So I mean, from a general perspective, it sounds like it could be a fit. It would, of course, depend on what the specific request was for, but yeah, that's possible.
Great.
And Bertha, I see you unmuted.
Yes, I was under my iPhone at first and realized that I hadn't put my name in. I'm sorry. My name is Bertha Carson King, and I'm a resident of Benton Harbor, Michigan, right in the thick of everything.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and I am founder of Strong Women of Faith Breast Cancer Support group here in the city, and in diversity consultant, and do a number of things in the community to benefit the lives of women and those who are going through many challenges of a number of issues. So I'm very interested, and also I'm a board of with Mary Alice Adams, a board member.
Wonderful.
Of her nonprofit group. And I'm really looking at how this water situation may play a part in the cancer rate. We have so much cancer in our community, and I really want to take a look at what might be affecting the lives of our people in this community, and what we can do to provide the tools and the education that is needed to combat the number of people that are being affected.
Absolutely. Lead in water has a multitude of impacts on human health, unfortunately. And we do have some resources that we'd be happy to share, Bertha, about that. And the other thing I would encourage you to consider in Benton Harbor is that we know that when the EPA came and did their inspection not long ago, there were 19 different violations at the water plant. And lead may not be the only concern.
Right.
And there is a really good resource. Everybody might want to know this. There's an organization called Environmental Working Group, EWG. And Environmental Working Group has an amazing array of resources on their website, including you can look up your municipality throughout the country, and it will tell you how it tests for different things in the drinking water. And even if they're below a standard, the EWG will still tell you the health impacts that could come from that. So it gives you an opportunity to see, well, even though it may meet standards legally, I still want to protect myself and filter for that particular thing. And I'll just share that I live in Jamestown, New York. We are on municipal drinking water. And when I go to the EWG site, they tell me to use a reverse osmosis filter to be safe because of all the things that are in the water. And I do. My family only drinks from the filtered tap water. And so they even do make recommendations as to what kind of filters would be helpful in your municipality. So those might be resources, Bertha, that would be helpful. And somebody on our staff would also be happy to talk to you about any of that if it would be of use.
Okay, I'll put my email and my number in the chat.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Lori, can you make sure you capture that for us? Thank you. All right, well, it was nice to meet you both, Bertha and Kay. And are there any last questions or comments before we adjourn?
Jill, this is Dale again. I'm sorry to bother you, but you perked my interest with this EWG. Can you give me more information on that group? Do they actually test your water? Can we send in a water sample?
No.
Oh.
What they do is they comb through all of the data that is compliance data from every municipality. And so what they're providing is based on that data. But they do a lot more than that too. They do food testing. They do all kinds of really amazing work to help us know that our food and water are safe, or if they're not, how we can protect ourselves. But I do not believe they have a lab.
When it comes to PFAS.
PFAS.
Okay. Right. When it comes to PFAS testing, can Freshwater Future recommend a reliable lab to provide that service?
Well, we could give you a short list of certified labs that we have actually worked with. And they've all been wonderful to work with.
If somebody else send me that, I'd really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yes, we can do that, Dale.
Okay, thank you.
Jill, this
Any
is.
other- Oh, yes, Caitlin.
I just have two final questions and they should be pretty easy. One is, if we were to apply and let's say be awarded a grant or funding for a project for the March 31st deadline, are we also eligible to apply in the September grant timeframe?
That's a great question. I should have covered that. Each organization can only receive one grant of each type from Freshwater Future each year. So you could receive an SOG, a communications grant, a consulting grant, and a project grant, but just one per year.
Gotcha. Thank you. I think I lost my other question, but that'll do it for me. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And don't hesitate to send us your question. We're happy to answer after.
Oh, you know what? I do remember. I'm just wondering if there's enough information on your website regarding the consulting grant, or if you have more information that you might send out to us.
Yes, we have information. We can make sure. And could you put your email in the chat if you don't mind, Caitlin, and we'll be
Certainly.
sure to send that out to you.
Yeah, the communication grant is specifically interesting to me. So I will put my email in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, you bet. Anyone else? Regina or Jody? Anyone?
I'm thinking of different groups and individuals that go out on the river and clean up. Will they be eligible for grants?
They
They
would
go
be
out-
eligible for grants, but we don't pay strictly for cleanups. So if you
Okay.
do a cleanup, then there has to be an advocacy component associated with that.
Okay, because I was thinking they're on canoes. I don't know whether the grant can go for websites to get more support for their cleaning up and protecting the water, or I don't know whether they need more canoes so people can be out there and helping with that. So I'm gonna probably send them your link and ask them to contact you.
I think that sounds great. Thank you,
Okay.
Regina. And what I can tell you is, if there's an advocacy component, then we can help with equipment and things like that. And in terms of websites, we do have a website program. I don't anticipate we'll be able to take new applications for that until fall.
Okay.
But we hope we'll be able to do that, where we build a website for the organization that is connected with a database, a communications database.
Okay, so okay, and thank you.
Absolutely. And we appreciate you passing the information along.
Okay.
Anything else?
I just want to add that if you send us an application, please, if you haven't heard from me that I've received it within like 24 hours, let me know, because I don't want anything to slip past me. So I want to make sure that I have received it and that everything's in good order.
Yes, we do occasionally not receive emails. And unfortunately, that has happened a few times where they were grant application emails. So we do send out a notification within 24 hours that your grant has been received. And if you don't get one, please call Lori and we'll figure out how to get it in. Great point, Lori. We want to make sure we get them all.
Absolutely.
I had one question before we leave, and that is, I do not believe we're currently a member of Freshwater Futures, but we can definitely look into becoming one. And so I'm wondering if there's like a time frame on how long you need to be a member before you can apply for grants.
There's no timeline. As
Okay.
long as you join when you send in your application or somewhere thereabouts, that would be fine.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, well, we're right on time. Look at that, 2:59. I really appreciate everybody's time and thoughts and comments. And I wish you all a wonderful day. And I hope there is not flooding with all this rain and messy stuff we're getting.
Well, I have a lake out in my backyard over on Lake Street. Thank
Oh,
you as
boy.
usual, ladies. This has been so helpful and very informational. Stay safe.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner. Bye, all.
Thank
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.